Hello everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. Raffi here, joined by Davian. Davian, today we are taking a break from the college football realm and taking a quick breather before we get into our full-blown NFL content, NFL predictions coming very, very soon in the coming weeks, to spend some time on some sports that a lot of people might not know about, might not get too much attention, or they're a little wackier than some of the sports that we typically see are Big Four plus MLS, etc. So today, decided, you know what? Let's shed some light and talk about some of these more interesting sports and see if we think that there's going to be upside to them, what are our thoughts on them, if we think it's a good idea, if there's anything else potentially to talk about. And no, David, I'm not talking about cricket, because cricket's actually very, very popular on the opposite side of the world. Very, very big. Honestly, cricket might be bigger than some of the four major sports leagues, just with the fact that there's so many people who really, really are into cricket. But anyways, aside from the cricket talk, I'll hand it over to you, Davian. How are you? How are things? This was your idea, this podcast, so I'm kind of letting you take the reins. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to get into?
All right, so first off, Raffi, to talk about cricket. Cricket is actually a super interesting, really interesting sport. They've made the sport a lot faster than it used to be, kind of similar to baseball. They kind of changed up the format from the original format because the game used to go on for days. Now it goes on for hours, but it's now like more watchable per se on live television. It's a growing sport in America. You have a lot of CEOs from major companies sponsoring it. You saw Team USA do very well, and most recently in the Cricket World Cup, beating Team Pakistan, which is one of the powerhouses in the cricket sport. Sorry, don't mean to get into it, but I'm doing great, Raffi. I think this is a really interesting podcast where we talk about more niche sports you don't really hear about on the news. You don't really hear about being talked about on ESPN or on other sports media sites. So I'm really excited to get into this. But before we do, Raffi, how have you been?
Doing well, excited for this podcast. This is definitely going to be a little more random and kind of out of our realm, as this is more still in the realm of sports, but still a little more fun, a little more chaotic. So let's see what this podcast has in store for us. Before we dive right in, I will say in my research of some of these, and we'll dive into the Savannah Bananas very, very soon. Savannah Bananas coming to Chicago, weekend of the 15th. And I know this podcast is being published after the fact, but I will say, as we're recording this podcast before then, I found that interesting that they're actually playing in Chicago at Ray Field. So very, very cool. If I want to, I could go to see the Savannah Bananas towards the end of the week as we're recording this podcast on August 12th. So we'll start off with the Savannah Bananas, one of the more well-known out of some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about today. And this really grew and really blew up, I feel like, right after COVID. It was a really random idea. They took baseball and said, you know what, why don't we make it a little more wacky, a little more chaotic? And I think they did a fantastic job promoting this on social media. They really, really did a good job of getting it out there. It started off kind of iffier, but they had so many different people, so many different personalities. They got celebrity people too, all that fun stuff. Made every person kind of have their own thing going for them. And it went from something where it looked a little corny, a little wacky at first, but it's really blown up to where whenever they play a game, it's always a blowout. You never really know what's going to happen. The rules are, I've tried reading the rules before. They make quite literally no sense. But David, what are your thoughts on Savannah Bananas? Because I think you combine the sports part of baseball with the entertainment part of just you want it to be a product, something people can watch and enjoy and get into it, be involved. What are your thoughts on the Savannah Bananas? Because I really think that it was definitely a chance that they took to wind up doing this and setting this up. But man, no pun intended, they really hit it out of the park. And it's been a lot of people will flock to these games to watch them. Even though we all know it's not a competitive baseball game.
Exactly. I mean, well, at the end of the day, Raffi, I will say when we talk about competitiveness, it actually kind of is, right? This isn't a Harlem Globetrotters where the Savannah Bananas are destined to always win, right? Like the Harlem Globetrotters, which is it's more childish in a way. I feel like this is something for all ages, right? They all the dances, every game, it's tailored to the new trends that are happening. They are constantly evolving and changing the game, and I think there's a few aspects of it that are really kind of interesting. One, 2 hour time limits. After 2 hours, that's it. No more. I think it's a shorter game. It's more fast paced, which is exactly what a lot of baseball fans have been looking for, and exactly what families with young kids who would be going to the Savannah Banana games are looking for. They're not looking for long, extended games. Second thing, talking about bringing kids and things like that, the prices are incredibly, incredibly cheap for Savannah Banana games. It's just hard to get in because of the wait list. And they have a broadcast deal with ESPN Plus, so this is clearly going to be a growing sport. They're going viral on TikTok. They're selling out their tours, and I think that it's a beautiful game in many ways, right? There's people dancing before they're pitching. There's people dancing before they're hitting. If a fan catches a foul ball, it's an out. So really the fans are the main part of the game, less so the baseball itself. And I think that there's a lot of beauty into it. And I'm curious to see how it can get replicated in football in some ways. And I feel like we almost saw that to an extent. There was the league, man, I forgot the name of it, but Raffi, I'm not sure if you remember this, but Johnny Manziel actually played in this league. It was basically you could call plays through your phone. You could vote for certain plays to happen. The fans had direct control of the teams that were playing. This football league kind of just fizzled out because when you're competing against so many other major sports, it's very hard to really gain traction unless you're like the Savannah Bananas and are really using social media to your advantage.
Right, and the one thing for me is I think it'll continue to grow in popularity, the Savannah Bananas. I just don't know if it's something where you can build it out, the multiverse of the Savannah Bananas, where you have a bunch of different teams going around doing etc. I feel like it's very niche. And I think it's good as is, where you have your two teams, where you have these matches, etc. I think that's pretty good. I don't know if necessarily they need to think too much of let's expand team-wise. I think the big thing for them is just continuously expanding their network, where they're going, etc., building out their fan base. So I really do like the idea. It's really, really grown on a lot of people over time. And David, you hit the nail on the head. It's the 2 hour time limit also kind of makes it, again, kind of like more of a performance too. At the end of the day, it's a sport, but it's also some sort of performance. You go there, you visit, and it's really cool because you can immerse yourself in the game too, which is obviously, as you mentioned with the foul ball rule, something really intriguing. So that's definitely something. It's definitely a thing that I think will keep growing in popularity. I just don't know if it can necessarily be replicated or if they can continue to add, if they'd want to be adding more teams, etc., to this multiverse league.
Yeah. I think there's ways to expand this league per se. I'm not sure exactly how it would work to expanding it beyond, having a similar format in other sports. We just mentioned how the football version of this kind of in a similar fashion failed. But in any case, I think that it's a really cool thing to see, and it'll be interesting to see if baseball itself ever tries to implement some of these rules and games, especially for something like the All-Star game. Where yes, baseball has been, MLB's done very well with the All-Star game, but implementing a rule where it's like, yeah, if a fan catches a foul ball, that is that's an out. And then, the teams will just be recruiting Zach Hampel to hopefully, catch their foul balls against the AL or the NL, which is, I think, really funny. Talking about another sport, moving on, Rafi. It's a sport that is very controversial and not as successful, is Dana White's Power Slap, sponsored by the UFC. It grew it got millions and millions of views, and it is one of the UFC's fastest growing, and like properties or entities besides the regular UFC matches. But man, this is such a weird sport, Rafi. I mean, it just you're watching two guys just slap the living hell out of each other, and it's short. It's a short format sport, so there for people, especially nowadays, this generation, which has a very low attention span, it's beneficial in that way. But I don't know if I'm gonna pay or turn on a Saturday night, like watching two guys just slap each other. Rafi, what are your thoughts on this? You think this is going to be something successful, or are we just kind of the odd ones out that don't seem to understand the sport?
Yeah, this is something similar. I'm kind of in a similar realm as you are, where it's it in a microcosm is quite literally two people slapping each other back and forth until one of them gets knocks out the other guy, or a girl as well. They have a women's as well in this power slap, and yeah, it's something that's just I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Again, like you said, Davian, I'm not. Savannah Bananas could be something where it would be fun to go. Like, I'm
Yeah,
genuinely
yeah,
considering going now this weekend if I can rope some people into it. Also going
yeah. You
with
should.
me. Power slap. When there's so many other better things on, rather watch a hockey game or if there was a football game on at that time or quite literally almost anything else. I'd rather be watching YouTube honestly than watching this
I'd
power
rather
slap
be
thing.
watching regular TV
I
than this. Yeah.
I seen the Instagram reels. I've seen the Instagram reels. I've seen the TikToks of it. Yes, it's funny sometimes to see the guy get slapped and then you see the face recoil, etc. It's funny,
Yeah.
but I'm just it's not something where I'm building my schedule around. Oh my gosh, I need to go watch this because it's just to me it's just ridiculous. Speaking of things that are ridiculous but actually kind of cool, you have chess boxing. Now that is very very interesting to me because it's not only just the pure boxing aspect of things, but you're also playing chess too. So it's the brains combined with the brawns, which I find very very fascinating as well. Where you kind of have a mix between you play a little bit of chess and then you start hitting each other, then you go back to the chess, you start playing a little bit of chess, then you go back to like knocking each other out. It's kind of it's that's something that's a little more entertaining, and it's also power slap is more just I slap you, and whoever slaps the hardest wins. Chess boxing, yes, you're hitting the other person as hard as you can, so you need to be athletic, but you also need to be intellectually very intelligent too to be able to beat whoever you're playing against in chess. So I think it's a more nuanced, a bit more high class than the power slap, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Rafi, first off, what a great segue. But yeah, I agree. I feel like chess boxing it's a sport which is very odd. Kind of seems disorganized when you're watching it because I've seen clips of it. But it's just fun because it's the mental precision and the ability to also knock each other out. I think there's some. I think that these kind of like mix of sports are going to really grow, and I honestly can't wait to see what happens there. And you couldn't really explain it better than I could. So, changing topics, one Olympic sport I love to watch, Rafi, is track and field. But there's no track and field professional league. Until doing research for this podcast, I found out about the Grand Slam track, which is trying to bring a year-round spotlight for the sport. And it has structured seasons and prize money and international broadcasts. And I think it has a chance to be very, very successful because there's so many fans that watch Olympic track, that go 4 years without watching anything, and now yes, you have like NCAA track field, track matches and whatnot, nationals and high school nationals, which are streamed on ESPN and everything. But having a professional league, I think, is huge, and especially if you get these like Noah Lyles and these really Sidney McLaughlin, these big track stars participate. I think you could really get a whole lot of viewers on this. And if you get athletes involved, Rafi, like if they have like special like Tyreek Hill against Noah Lyles race, or you have these football players racing, or then you got like 40-yard dashes of old time like retirees from the NFL, and you got Brady and Manning competing. There's so many ways I think for them to like really improve, like change the sport and really enter this field. But I think they got to take a unique route, similar to the Savannah Bananas, where you have these not so-called like mini games per se or side quests, but you have certain prizes and certain times. So it's like if you set up best time at a lap, you get extra points. Kind of similar to F1 in a way as well.
Yeah, and I do like this a lot, and I think, in part of my ignorance, if there is something like this, but there's no, to my knowledge, post-college professional swim leagues. There's no post-college professional
No.
gymnastics leagues, and I wouldn't watch professional gymnastics or professional volleyball or professional water polo, swimming, etc. But I think it would be good. I think a lot of people enjoy those events in the Olympics, like you're mentioning, and doing something more season based, I think, is also a benefit to athletes as well, where you do training, you have your Olympics, and then there's really kind of a fall off there. You're still obviously training a lot, but you don't really compete too much outside of that. So providing some more professional settings, and this could be bi-yearly, this could be every once in a 3-month period, and then you take a break, and then you do another one at some point. I kind of like the idea of having more of these Olympic sports kind of venture off into doing their own leagues as well. I think that'd be really beneficial because, again, there's so many people who love watching water polo. There's so many people who like watching swimming events. There's so many people who like watching gymnastics, etc., volleyball, this, that, and really once you get outside of college, there's really not much else to really look at if you're interested. You have your event every 4 years, and outside of that, you're not really watching too much. Could you imagine? Again, I could be making a complete fool of myself, but could you imagine Michael Phelps doing professional swimming in a professional swimming league, and imagine how goated he'd be, even more goated than he is already in that sense. So I think it would be cool. I like the idea of this Grand Slam track. Again, a lot of these sports are more niche. They're not going to be making as much money as the Major Four, etc. Not even as much as probably professional lacrosse, which is decently popular. But I think it has this niche group of fans that you can make a profit on it, and I think it's good for the athletes too, because then you could potentially make some more money throughout the year. So you're not just training, but you can also find a way to get some more money, potentially get some more sponsorships, etc., outside of the Olympics. And overall, I think it's a solid idea. I don't hate it.
Yeah, I agree with that, Rafi. I think that there are potential for other leagues to emerge as well. With swimming, you have like the world championships each year, so that kind of exists. In gymnastics, you have that as well. In track, I guess you kind of have that, but they're not very popular. So creating a league in a way, I think, can be hugely beneficial, and especially because track is such a big sport. There's so many people who love running. I mean, how many times do you see like marathons, triathlons, half marathons? People love the sport of running. They love to use it as a workout. So I think there's really a big base that they can really grow into. And speaking about growing sports, Rafi, let's talk about padel, a sport that you brought up before this podcast, and a sport I only heard of this summer. Can you explain it first to the viewers, Rafi? Because I don't think I can explain it well.
Pickleball and a cage.
Perfect. Yes, I guess that would be the best way to do it. It's a blend of tennis and squash, where squash you're playing off the wall, I believe it is.
Yes.
And the walls are part of the game as well. So there are certain rules with how you can bounce things off the wall, how many times it can bounce off. But in any case, it is a growing sport. Rafi, in my short research before we hopped on this podcast, there's actually a professional league already growing, which is the Pro Padel League and the Premier Padel Tour, which is sponsored by David Beckham, who is the infamous English athlete, also owner of the Inter Miami CF, and Andy Murray, multi-time, champ of all these opens. So it clearly has a celebrity backing and support from very big names. And I think it rivals in many ways the growth of pickleball. And we could get into this as well, but pickleball is also a very growing sport in America, and it too has a professional league. I've actually watched it on TV like at one point when I would just turn on my TV and I was like, wow, wait, this is pickleball on live television. And, it's a growing competitive league, and it's interesting to see, what is able to crack into the market more, pickleball or padel. Which one's going to rise up to the top more? The thing is, I say about padel, which makes it a challenge as a sport to grow, is because of the special courts you need to have. Because it's an enclosed kind of a cage, and it's, I feel like it costs more to invest into a padel-like court than versus a pickleball court, which you can convert a simple tennis court into a pickleball court,
Right, and pickleball has been getting big and big, especially right after COVID, during COVID times. And now it's become a great sport of old people like myself. And yes, being 23, pickleball is certainly something that I play quite often. I actually played pickleball last week with some of my other really old coworkers who are also 23, 22 years old. So really getting up there in age. Davian, enjoy your youth while you have it. But at the end of the day, pickleball really, really massively growing over the past couple of years, just because it's like tennis, and a lot of people who like playing tennis or just want to be active, pickleball is not something that's going to strain you too much. Some people get injured in pickleball sometimes because they get too into it, or they just think, you know what, I can do it. I've done this before, and then you realize you're not 20 years old and you accidentally hurt yourself playing pickleball. But anyways, it's a game that's been really, really popular, grown in popularity a lot, to the point where when I go on bike rides now, the amount of pickleball courts that I pass, it's at least 3 or 4 pickleball courts and my bike rides, not to hype myself too much, but for 15-20 mile bike rides, I'm doing a lot of loops, a lot of routes, this, that, and the fact that I'm seeing 3-4 pickleball courts on this route separate from one another, it just shows how it's grown a lot. And I'm not gonna lie, I saw this pedal thing and I was like, this is really, really cool, because you play off the walls, which you just don't see, and it's also, you see 4 people walk into a cage, and then they play essentially a similar like tennis pickleball type of game, and it's just, for me, it was just mind blowing. It was really cool. It was really fun. So I was like, why not talk about this too? So I wouldn't be shocked if this also grows a little bit in popularity. I think at the end of the day, most of these are going to be very, very niche sports where people are going to only follow them if they really get into it. I don't think any of these are going to really rival the Big Four or soccer, this, that. But I think they all will respectively have their niche fan bases. And then you have Savannah Bananas, which is much more higher up in that status, where they have massive followings. But these other sports that we talked about today, it's a lot. You're gonna have enough to stay afloat at the end of the day, because it's very niche, and you'll have enough people in that niche group that will enjoy and want to watch these sports more.
Yeah, I agree, Raffi. And one more league that I was gonna talk about is arena football, but honestly, I don't think it's worth the viewers' time to even talk about it. This is a sport that has tried year after year to try and grow, and it's just been a failure. I mean, it just never caught traction, Raffi, and it's been around for decades upon decades. We saw Kurt Warner play arena football and then, jump into the NFL, hopping onto the Rams training camp. There's an entire story. There's an entire movie about it. But this is arena football is being played in malls. Raffi, I think one of the big games was played in the American Dream Mall, which is which is a mall by me in East Rutherford, right next to MetLife Stadium. It's just a sport that keeps trying to grow traction and just keeps failing. Like Antonio Brown and that whole saga with the Albany team. It's a league which has the right idea, I think, and it could be successful, but just the execution of it, and I think it has been terrible, in all honesty.
Well, it's the same thing as the XFL, UFL, all these nonsense leagues that try to bring spring football to the viewers' eyes, and it's like, well, you missed NFL, you missed college football. Here you go. Here's the sport in the spring. Here's football in the spring, and most of those leagues do not succeed because the people who are in charge of running those leagues do a really, really bad job of pushing the product, paying their players. Hint, hint. I believe it's the team in Albany or whichever team it was in the XFL, who had that whole thing about where their owner was just a crazy person, essentially. So I think one day there will be a spring football league that is successful. But none of these leagues right now have the funding, have the right people in charge, where I could definitively say, these are going to be very popular one day. They all have their flaws, and all these flaws are quite brutal. I want to end though on one final sport, Davian. And I don't know how well versed you are in this, because this was something that I was kind of in on and learned about when I was in middle school. Early middle school, elementary school, so you were probably, 2-3 years old at that point. But anyways, slam ball, Davian. Slam ball. Bring back slam ball. I loved slam ball. I loved watching the clips, etc. Slam ball was great. We need to bring that back. If there's any of these sports that I would actually invest my time into watching, it would be slam ball. You can't tell me, Davian, that you have never thought about playing basketball on trampolines. I've literally done that before when I was a child. It's great. I love the idea. It's sick. Could you imagine just LeBron James dunking? And I'm the one who's bringing up LeBron James here, which makes it even more crazier. LeBron James playing slam ball would be absolutely absurd. It would be a crazy game. I love slam ball. I will always back that. That's my niche random sport that I will always back and say, you know what, we need to bring this back because slam ball was a great sport.
You know, the reason why Raffi wants slam ball back is because that's the only way he can dunk if there's a trampoline underneath him.
100%. Yes, absolutely. And David, you cannot tell me the amount, and you would know this too. You're not as tall as I am, but you know the power
we've
of
discussed.
dunking
I'm like 6'5"
on a trampoline.
Like, I don't get this talk.
Yes, I'm 6'4". I'm 6'4". You're 6'2". We've discussed this.
No, I'm like 6'7", bro. You know. I got him, guys. Yeah, no, look, slam ball I think is a great sport. I really do want to bring it back. I think that it's honestly a sport that I think would bring a lot of fans, and it's similar to, you know, when we talked about Savannah Bananas and seeing how you can implement it into other sports. I think slam ball is that, because not only was it, you know, you were dunking the ball like crazy, like jumping on trampolines, you were slamming each other into the walls too. I mean, Raffi, this was like hockey and basketball. I mean, fouls did not exist because I also don't think you could really. I don't think, like, depending on the format of the game, I don't think there was a way to like dribble the ball at all. You would just kind of just be playing from trampoline to trampoline. Like, I don't think there was any hard court in some of them.
Right, and again, it's really fun. And what's the best part about what do you do when you go to a trampoline place? You jump in the foam pit, and you also use the trampolines to dunk basketballs in the basketball hoop, and you pretend that all of a sudden you are an NBA player and you're dunking a basketball. Because Davian, like we've established already, I can't dunk a basketball. So when I get to go on a trampoline and dunk a basketball, it's really, really fun. So I love slam ball, and it's a sport that if they brought it back and there was more slam ball stuff, I would be 100% back into it. It's a really fun sport. I think if it gets brought back and you can bring in some NBA players to have a little bit of fun with it, or former NBA players, I think it could have some success. I 100% do. So I think that's where we'll end it. Bring back slam ball. Great sport. Very niche sport, but it has my heart as someone who, again, loves trampolines and loves basketball on trampolines. But let us know in the comments below what niche sports you guys are into. Let us know your thoughts about slam ball and how great it is. And yeah, for Davian, I'm Raffi. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. Have a good one. And we'll be back to more regular sports, as I say in quotations, in future weeks. See ya.
Peace.